Hi, I'm Max Dalton, and in this video, I'm going to talk through the 5 best movie review podcasts. There is a large universe of podcasts discussing movies, and finding the quality shows can be a challenge. I've compiled this list of the 5 best movie podcasts to help make your search a little bit easier. Each of these podcasts offers something a little bit different, whether you're looking for a podcast that reviews an entire movie series, a show that just reviews the hottest new releases, a podcast that focuses on daily movie news, or something more on the artistic side. Additionally, if there's a movie review podcast that you love, please drop it in the comments so everyone else can check it out. Alternatively, if you have your own movie review podcast that you'd like people to check out, please leave that in the comments as well. First, Now Playing. The Now Playing podcast is part of the Vengaza Media Network, based in Springfield, Illinois. The podcast has 3 core hosts who review a new podcast every week. The podcast is unique in that they don't just review a new release, but rather all of the movies that may be a part of that series in the lead up to a new release. Additionally, the Now Playing podcast also differentiates itself from other movie podcasts by offering special podcasts on a regular basis that are only available to listeners who donate at various levels. The hosts have a strong background in film, and shows generally run somewhere between 1 and 2 hours. Collider Movie Talk. The Collider Movie Talk podcast features a panel of roughly 5 hosts that talk about the latest in movie news on a daily basis. The conversation is very insightful, as the hosts are fairly well plugged into the movie industry and have genuine insight that a lot of other movie podcasts won't be able to put forward. Additionally, some of the hosts have their own separate media ventures independent of the Collider network for publishing their thoughts associated with movies and movie news. So it's very interesting to hear those strong voices come together and debate their opinions. The Collider Movie Talk podcast also features roundtable discussions about newer movies and plenty of conversation around older movies. The Script. The Script podcast is a podcast published by the New York City Screenwriters Collective. New episodes focus on newly released movies, but are released sporadically, roughly once a month, which makes it hard to get really hooked on it. When a new review does come out, it's focused on a newly released movie. The reviews generally focus on the quality of the screenwriting, which is something no other podcast does. The biggest knock against the podcast is the audio quality, which is terrible. The episodes are hosted by a small roundtable of screenwriters and generally last between 1 and 2 hours. If you can stomach the poor audio quality, the show is fantastic. Mad About Movies. The Mad About Movies podcast is published on a weekly basis. The show is hosted by 3 friends who take a quick lap through the movie news before digging into a larger review about a newly released movie. The chemistry between the hosts is great, and their general knowledge about filmmaking shines through in each episode. The biggest downside is that sometimes the conversation in the earlier part of the show can drift off into topics that aren't really movie related, so it can be frustrating for people who just want to hear a conversation about movies. And finally, Slash Film. The Slash Film podcast is hosted by a small panel of industry professionals who bring a lot of film knowledge and industry insight to the show episodes that get published on a weekly basis. The show structure generally has the host discussing movie news for the first half hour before digging into a review of a newly released movie. The conversation during the first part of the show can veer, and some of the conversation during the defined sections can feel a bit forced and stuffy. However, they do review some of the more artistic movies that other podcasts don't spend any time on. Episodes generally last 1 hour.